Hey there, welcome back to the channel. My name is Carrie with Blue City Pickin, and if you are new here, I am a part-time reseller that goes out to local thrift stores, garage sales, estate sales, and attempts to buy things to flip for a profit on eBay. And I am only an eBay seller at this time. You are here for Ching number 26, and it was a better week. So I've had a couple of slower weeks, number 24 and 25, and honestly, 26 came in with about as much as those 2 weeks combined. So pretty happy with my results for this week. We were able to sell 23 different things, still below my goal of 35, but that is okay because the profit per item was really, really good this week. So give and take on quantity versus quality. So I'm pretty ecstatic about that. And let's get into some numbers. So total sales this week was $931.44. And so that's gross sales, including tax, shipping, everything. Buyer paid, well, that's what the buyer paid. The purchase price was $747.48. My cost of goods on these were $184.49. So my gross profit was $436.94. I am very pleased with that, as I mentioned. So my lowest profiting item was $4.31. It was something I had purchased not to resell, so I'm okay with that. And then the highest profit per item was something where I made almost $50, but it is actually coming back to me already. So give and take there. But even with that, my average profit per item this week was $19, which is amazing. Days on the platform, I had something that sold the same day I listed it, and I had something that took almost a full year to sell at 315 days. And then the average was at about 83, which I consider basically 100% sell-through. We'll cover kind of the store allocation and the genres of what I sold at the end. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing I sold this week, and this is the week of February 23rd, by the way. First thing I sold was a Carhartt men's shirt that was a size small. It was new with tag, and it came from a local thrift store where I paid $7.68 for it. Buyer paid $22, and when I say $22, that is the buyer price, not including shipping and taxes, because I feel like that's a more realistic view of what it looks like before fees. So buyer paid $22, or sales price was $22. And I profited $11.15 in 10 days. Next item was this vintage Southwestern mother of pearl sterling cuff bracelet. I've had this for 315 days. I picked it up at an auction last April. I paid $15 for it, so I paid more expecting to get more out of it, but I went ahead and accepted an offer for $35.16. And so I made $13.93 after almost a year. Next item is an American Girl doll. It was a Bitty Baby that I picked up at City Thrift back at the beginning of February. I paid $3.18 for it. So buyer price was $15, and I made $8.11, but it sold the exact same day I listed it. And I've already gotten positive feedback on it, so I am okay with that. Next item is a pair of Hoka Clifton 9 women's running shoes. I paid $12.43 for this at a Goodwill back a few weeks ago. They sold for $35.20, and I made $17 and a penny after 12 days. Next up is a pair of Dansko Mary Jane shoes. They had this really cute little, they were brown. They just looked really nice. So I paid $9.23 for this at Goodwill back earlier in February. They sold for $29, so I made $15.12, and they sold the same day I listed them. Next item was an REI Trail Series backpack. I paid $4.19 at this from Blue City Thrift back in September. It sold for $23.16, and so I made $15.99 after 166 days. Next item was a pair of FitFlop platform mule sandals. I paid $5.48 for this at City Thrift back in the middle of February. They sold for $23, and so I made $14.59 after 6 days. Next item is a pair of Merrell Agility Peak running shoe or hiking sneakers. I paid $12.43 for these at Goodwill back in the middle of February. I paid up for them because I knew they were basically new. So I was able to yield $51.20 for them, and so I made $30.22 in just 2 weeks. Next item was a longer tail on it, but it finally sold, and I've already gotten positive feedback for the buyer, which makes me incredibly happy. This is a vintage 1974 Fabergé travel kit that had soap, cologne, bath powder, and it had a case. I also had the original box for this. I picked this up at an estate sale back in August for just $1. It sold for $44, and so I made $34.74 after 189 days. Next up is this Jordan Jumpman hoodie. It had a graphic on the front that looked like it had been stitched, but it was printed. A friend of mine actually gave this to me to sell. Her son had cleaned out his closet and they were just going to donate it. And so they gave me the entire closet clean out to see if any of my kids wanted anything. This was one of the things that was left. So I listed it and it sold for $40. And so my profit was $32.54 after 136 days. Next up is a Lululemon full zip jacket, size 8. I picked this up at Goodwill back at the beginning of February for $6.20. It sold for $26, and so I had a profit of $15.87 after just 19 days. I mean, everybody says that Lululemon is kind of dead. I would say it's not dead. It just doesn't sell for as much. So if you price it really high, it's not going to sell. It's going to sit. So you need to get it at the right price and the right buy-in. And then price it right and then be willing to accept offers and let it go. So I'm perfectly content with making $15.87 on something after just a few weeks, whether it's Lululemon or not. So next up is a pair of Tory Burch retro flip-flops. This was a pleasant surprise. I paid $8.34 for these at Goodwill back at the beginning of the month, February. They sold for $39. I mean, they were super cute, don't get me wrong, but a little surprising to me that they sold for so much. And then my profit was $26.17 after 23 days. Next up was a Logitech Harmony One universal remote. I have sold these before, so when I saw it at an estate sale for $10, I knew it would sell fast, and so I have $10 into this. It sold for $25. And I made $10 back in profit after 0 days. So I got my money back. I doubled my money in basically no time. And I knew that it worked, so I was happy. Next up is what is coming back to me. This is one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made at an estate sale. And maybe one day I'll admit to it, but I'm pretty disappointed in myself. This was a Logitech Comfort Wave wireless keyboard and mouse combo. It was marketed as new in box. It looked like it had been sealed. I got it home and I looked at it and it looked like it had been resealed. So I opened it up at home. It looked like everything was still packaged properly and new. So I put it as new with open box. Well, I sold it, and the gentleman that received it, who has been incredibly understanding, by the way, like super nice about it, told me it was in fact not new, because when he peeled off all the plastic, it was dirty and all this stuff. I don't know how I missed that, but I did pay up for this keyboard because it was brand new and I knew it was going to sell for over $100. So I paid $45 for it. It did sell for $120. If I had not been getting it back, I would have made $50 on it in just 3 days. But I'm getting it back, and I will be lucky to get what I paid for it out of it because it is in fact not new. So I'm pretty disappointed. I'm pretty upset, and I'm just trying to move on because we all make mistakes, but I haven't had one this bad in quite some time. So that just shows you don't get your adrenaline rush at the estate sale. Make sure you're checking everything very thoroughly. But especially if you're paying up for something. So next up is this set of Clark's men's. They're kind of like a chukka-boot, but they were a size 15. So they were a very large size. I paid $10.43 for these at Goodwill back in January. And they sold for $31.20, so I made $15.05 in 33 days. Next up is a pair of Brooks Ghost 12 men's sneakers. I paid $12.29 for these at Goodwill back in January. They sold for $39, so my profit was $20.57 after 34 days. Next up, another pair of shoes, a pair of Merrill Walnut hiking boots. This was a size 10. I paid $8.99 for these at Goodwill back in October. They sold for $33.91, and so I made $19.15 after 115 days. Next item is a large Eden Peter Rabbit plush that I picked up for $1 at an estate sale back in December. He sold for $13.95, and so I made a profit of $8.85 after 68 days. Next item is a Givenchy black velour long sleeve shirt. Paid $2 for this at an estate sale back in July. Honestly, I was looking for inventory at the time, and I probably made some decisions that I regret, so I would not pick this up again. It sold for $14 despite it being vintage Givenchy. That's okay. So I ended up making $10.08 on it after 204 days, but I was happy to go ahead and get that out of the store. Next up is my lowest profit of the week, and this was an Aerie V-neck sweater. It was oversized, had a raw hem. I thought my daughter was going to want it, so I purchased it for $6.34 at Goodwill back in January for one of my kiddos. She decided she didn't want it, and so I ultimately sold it for $14, and I made $4.31 after 46 days. Next up was a sale of 2 items to the same buyer. This was 2 sets of party light candle holders. One were like peg light holders, so it just had a small bottom that you would put into like a candelabra or something. And then the next 2 were 2 votive holders. So 4 of the peg holders, 2 of the votive holders. I picked these up in a huge party light lot that I got last summer. I've sold hundreds of dollars worth of candles at this point out of that. I think I paid $10 for the whole lot. And so I have nothing left into these. The set of 4 sold for $39.85. The set of 2 sold for $19.85. So a total of, hang on, let me look at that real quick. A total of $59.70. Had nothing into it, and so my profit was $52.25. Now, I have had them for quite some time, so it took them about 251 days to sell. But I'm pleased with a $60 profit on a $0 investment. And then last but certainly not least for this week, I sold a Mariah Elizabeth Cousin Derp Burger plush. Mariah Elizabeth is a YouTuber, an influencer. I have sold her items before. I am aware of her because of my kids. I highly recommend that you check out certain things that maybe you pick up from different YouTubers or influencers. Some of them aren't worth anything, and then some of them are worth some good money. So I paid $1.08 for this at Goodwill back in February. The adorable little burger sold for $15, and so I made $11.57, and it was listed for just 8 days. So like I said, super happy with the profits for this week at $436.94. Yeah, just really, really ecstatic. So as far as where the items came from that I sold, about 40% of them came from Goodwill, about 15% came from auctions, 26% came from estate sales, and then I had about 20% that came from like Blues City Thrift, City Thrift, or just home clean outs. As far as genres, clothing and shoes still coming in really strong. I had a lot of really great shoe sales this week. House, including like kitchen stuff and decor, came in about 34%, and then toys were really low this week at just 7%. There was a time where the majority of what I was selling was toys and collectibles, which is where my heart is. But realistically, if you want to have more consistent sales, my thought process is either you've got to niche down and become a, subject matter expert and just pump your store full of a lot of the same things, like all books, all media, etc. Or you kind of need to be an everything seller. And given that I have to limit my sourcing to when I have time outside of my family and my full-time job, I've chosen to be an everything seller because it gives me more options when I do go source, so that I don't have to leave a store empty-handed if I didn't find anything. I think I've only left a store empty-handed like maybe once or twice. I've definitely walked out of some estate sales with nothing just because the prices were either not conducive, or it's been mostly prices, because I can usually find something in an estate sale, but if it is just priced way too high, I don't have any room on the back end as a reseller. So if you like this kind of content, I would genuinely appreciate a like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 500 subs by the end of March. On my way. I'm so close, and I am just grateful for anybody who has joined me on this journey of learning and fun. So if you don't mind, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.